All right. So before we start the session, let us chant Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. All right, so let us turn to page number 230. Page number 230. All right. So it might seem difficult, but it is really not difficult, although the numbers might seem confusing at first. So something that we have to remember when it comes to the immaterial realms as well as the Rupavachara realms, both being meditative realms, this chart or this section of study that we are going to be doing focuses on where or how these beings may die and what kind of rebirth consciousness appears, giving them whatever resultants they would get owing to their past karma, right? So, how they would die and where they would go, essentially, right? And owing to what consciousness, right? Owing to what consciousness. So, number 31, right now, these are all referring to worldlings, right? As it mentions on top of the chart. Neither, so the old realm is neither perception nor non perception. We know that this comes about, this attainment or attaining onto this sphere of existence comes about because of the fourth jhana. We are taking the fourth jhana as the la, or according to the sutra technique. We are taking the fourth jhana as the final and highest jhana. So neither perception nor non-perception, beings within this realm would be reborn into this realm owing to the fourth immaterial sphere resultant, right? Immaterial sphere resultant is what gives the patisandhi to come into this rebirth. Where can this being go? This being, then, something to then remember is these beings can be reborn in the same plane, that is the fourth jhana plane, as well as kama sugati, sensual sphere, the sugati, the happy planes. They cannot go down to the aggressive, the lower, the kama dugati planes. So any patisandhi consciousness which would create resultant within the same four material, four jhana immaterial sphere resultant, as well as what would create a kama sugati, comes into this. So let's look at what chittas are there. The first one is a fourth immaterial sphere resultant. It is through this that the being can be reborn within the immaterial sphere, fourth immaterial sphere specifically. Three-rooted sense sphere resultant. Three-rooted sense sphere resultant, four. Is that clear? Yeah, that is clear. Then nothingness, which is the third. Patisandhi in this plane will be brought about by the third resultant, right? Third immaterial sphere resultant, and they can be reborn in the planes. Also, for the first one, we didn't do that. they can be reborn within or plane number 5 to 11. Plane number 5 or the fifth plane in the 31 planes of existence is a human plane up until 11. That encompasses the whole of Kama Sugati, right? So, namely, human realm, Manusa Bhumi, Chatumharajika, Tavatinsa, Yama, Tusita, Nimmana Rati, Paranimita Vasavatya. These four, or that being, can be reborn within the Kama Sugati. That is 5 to 11. Is that understood? Right? Then nothingness. Nothingness would be the third jhana result. Immaterial sphere resultant is what brings him to the sphere of nothingness. Then he can be reborn within the sphere of nothingness. He can develop his jhanas and go to the jhana beyond. And he can be reborn within the Kama Sugati Bhumi. So 5 to 11, 30 is nothingness sphere, right? Nothingness plane. And 31 is Neva Sanya, Na Sanyayatana, the fifth one, right? So 30 and 31. How can these, or how, what kind of consciousness can bring about the rebirth linking? That should be then the third immaterial sphere resultant, uh, the fourth immaterial sphere resultant, and the third immaterial sphere resultant, and the three rooted sensual sphere resultants, which is 4, which will take that being into the Kama Sugati, if not to the Neva Sanya Na Sanyayatana plane. Is that understood? Yeah. Then infinite consciousness, which is a rebirth which is gained through the second immaterial sphere resultant, or rather the second immaterial jhana. That being can be reborn within Kama Sugati, which is 5 to 11. That being can also be reborn within the same plane, which is the second immaterial sphere resultant, or the second immaterial sphere jhana, as well as develop into higher jhanas and be reborn in those planes. So 29, 30, and 31. Is that understood? Right? 29, just for a reminder, 29 is infinite consciousness, 30 is nothingness, and the 31 is Devasanya, Nasanya, neither perception nor non-perception. Right? Those are the planes that that being can be reborn into. Infinite space, which is brought about by this first jhana resultant, the first immaterial sphere resultant, which is still the fourth jhana, then this being can be reborn within Kama Sugati after death, or he can be reborn within his plane or the higher planes after developing the respective jhanas required. So, because of this, the Patisandhi consciousnesses that may or could arise is first jhana to fourth jhana immaterial sphere resultant, three-rooted immaterial sense sphere resultant 4. Thus, can go to Kama Sugati and those respective jhana planes should he develop further within, right? Should he develop further within. So this would also sort of say, would it say, I'm asking, that this being can lose a jhana whilst in the jhana plane? What do you think? Any ideas?
Yes, Bhante. They can lose, and then they can come back to any of the 5 to 11.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how do we know that they lose, Dhamma?
Lose of concentration, because there were occasion actually. Um, the story says that someone, jhanic person, was uh, was uh, was in the sky and saw a beautiful woman uh, somewhere down, and he loses the jhana, and immediately he he dropped on the ground actually. So that's the strength of the jhana. As soon as you lose it, you lose all your powers
Yeah.
of
That
the
story is true. However,
yeah.
um, losing the jhana within the jhanic plane itself,
Okay.
specifically because that story is about a being who is about a hermit who lives
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
for a human realm.
That's mainly fine material, when he was actually when he has achieved one of the 5 jhanas actually, and then utilizing that power.
A being who lives within the jhanic planes is very much can there is potential for that person to lose the jhana, right? To lose the jhana, that is very much sure. All right. Non
Bhante, can I ask, what are sense sphere resultant for?
sensory resultant 4 is 3 rooted. So is the sobhana chittas, right?
Yeah.
Uh, what sobhana?
Sobana.
Which sobhana is it? The categorization.
Sobhana resultants with knowledge.
Sobhana kusala chitta, right? So there are 24 sobhana kusala chittas, and that is a part of the kama bhumi, right? And that is what they're referring to. So
But there are 8 resultants, no?
there are eight
In
results.
Sobana,
There are 8 resultants. However, we are only taking the 3 rooted resultants. So because of that purpose, we are dropping 4 because the other 4 are not 3 rooted. They are 2 rooted.
oh, I see.
The words, it's jnana sampayutta.
Jnana Sampayutta.
Right.
Yeah.
And Jnana Sampayutta. So we only take the consciousnesses with knowledge.
With knowledge. Yeah.
Now, non-percipient. The death consciousness is nothing, right? The death consciousness is nothing. Where can this being reappear? This being can reappear in Kama Sugati, 5 to 11, right? What is the rebirth linking consciousness or the rebirth consciousness that would appear to this person is the sense sphere resultant 8, the great sense sphere resultant, right? The great sense sphere resultants 8, any of the 8 can appear. Then, great reward. Is it clear? We have already discussed. Is it clear why non-percipient death consciousness is nothing?
Haven't got a mind.
Because, well, death consciousness at that moment, there is a mind. However, the meditation that the person who would be reborn within the death consciousness sphere, or the the non-percipient sphere is a trainee who gets rid of the raga towards the mind. That is the resultant, no?
Mhm.
It is getting rid of that attachment to the mind or suppressing the mind that one is able to reach that state of asanna satta plane, right? Asanna satta plane. So within the death consciousness, it's a similar position that follows, right? It's a similar position
They are
that
missing 23 to 27, so they are the PO about 5, is it? 23 to 27, they are missing. Could be PO boats, the 5.
no. In the non-percipient,
Yeah, it's the last one we did was 28, and then we came down to 22. So the 5 missing,
okay. Ah, yes.
they should be PO boats because they don't come back. They are not reborn.
Remember, Noli, we are only doing wordlings. That is why they are not in this chart. If they,
All right.
yeah, if they're in the Suddha, Pancha Suddhavasa, means that they are not worldlings.
All right.
Right? Page number 230 there. All right. So then that is binary. So we will come to that in the other chart. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Then we have the great reward. Great reward is, if you remember what great reward is, it is within the fourth jhana plane, right? Great reward is also within the fourth jhana plane. Now, here, great reward, if the fifth fine material sphere resultant, fifth material sphere resultant, right, is where you get into great reward. Now, a being from great reward can develop higher jhanas or go down to kama sugati again, right? Or go down to kama sugati or any one of the other jhanic planes, right? So from, it says it's from 5 to 31. So any of the jhanic planes it can go into upon death. For that to happen, then the rebirth linking should be the great sense sphere resultants 8, any of the great sense sphere resultants 8, the fine material resultants 5, or the immaterial sphere resultants 4, depending on which jhana the person would develop or maintain or go down to during that time of life in that sphere, right? In that sphere. For all the rest, for steady aura. Now, steady aura is the fourth jhana. Fourth jhana, 5 material sphere resultant. That person too can be reborn from the human realm all the way up until Neva Sanya, Nasanya Yatana, because of that ability to go into those different jhanas. The what consciousnesses would bring that specific resultant is the great sense sphere resultant 8, the respective 5 material sphere resultant 5 from the 5 jhanas, and the immaterial sphere resultant 4, depending on what that person develops in that realm. And this continues all the way up until Mahabrahma. Now, where is Mahabrahma? Mahabrahma is a fifth jhana. Remember, Mahabrahma is within the fifth jhana plane. I'm sorry, the first jhana plane. I'm sorry, the first jhana plane, right? The first jhana plane. All the way up until the first jhana plane, right? We see 14. All of these worldlings, Mahabrahma is born with the first 5 material sphere, right? And even then, they can go be reborn in the human realm all the way up to Nevasanya, Nasanya plane, Bhumi, right? With the help of the great sense sphere resultant 8, the 5 material sphere 5, and the immaterial sphere 4, right? 4. Let's go down to number 11, Paranimita Vasavatti. Is that all clear? Yes? Is it clear? Okay. Paranimita Vasavatti. We have this, a being who is reborn within Paranimita Vasavatti is reborn there because of the two-rooted sense sphere resultants, right? Two-rooted sense sphere resultant, or it can also be three-rooted sense sphere resultant, right? Three-rooted sense sphere resultant. Upon the process of death, the being can be reborn from 1 to 11. That is, 1 is hell, 2 animal world, 3 preta world, 4 asura world, 5 human, 6 chatumharajaka tavatinsa yama tusita nimmanarati paranimita vasavatti. From 1 to 11, that being can be reborn within. Why? Sense sphere, Paranimita Vasavattiya, is the top of the sense sphere world, right? Hence, it has a potential to go all the way down, which is to hell, right? How does this become a reality? It is through the great sense sphere resultant 8, right? We need the 8 to be reborn within the divine realms or even the better part of the human realm, right? Then we have the investigating consciousness 2, right? And the investigating consciousness 2 for the lower resultants, right? For the lower resultants. Then Paranimita Vasavatti, Nimman Rati Tusita Yam Tavatinsa Chatumharajika, right? All the way up to Tavasinsa, that is the same repetition, right? Meaning a person is born there with either two-rooted sense sphere resultant or three-rooted sense sphere resultants, 4 for each, right? Can be reborn within, right? Can be reborn within the, essentially when coming down or within the sense sphere, can be 1 to 11, which covers the whole sense sphere. But owing to development, the being can be reborn in any sphere from 1 to 31, dependent upon development, right? The being can be reborn from 1 to 31. Yes, Noeline? Lucky?
Yes, Bhante, can I ask a quick question, please?
Yes, go ahead.
You know, when it says great sense sphere resultant 8, does it mean one of the 8 or all 8?
One of the 8.
One of the 8. And same with the investigation, isn't it? It's one of the 2
One
investigations
of anything.
of anything, right? One of anything. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Bhante. Thank you.
Yeah. Because remember, Lucky, the process
Yeah.
of rebirth linking can only be done with the predominance of one consciousness, no?
Yes, yes.
That is what it's
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah.
Right.
Then
Yeah,
we
thank
have the Chatum Maharajaka, right? Wholesome resultant, investigating 1, 2-rooted sense sphere resultant 4, 3-rooted sense sphere resultant 4. They can all appear within the Chatum Maharajaka, right? To give resultant within the Chatumharajaka, dependent upon the consciousness, your lustra, your grandiosity, all of this will be determined by the power of that rebirth linking consciousness, which brings you to the Chatumharajaka, right? Where can these beings be reborn? Same scenario, 1 to 11, with development 1 to 31. Right? 1 to 31. There are possibilities in this. How does it, or how do those rebirth linking consciousness, how are they brought about? They're brought about by the great sense sphere resultant 8, the investigating consciousness 4, right? Investigating consciousness 4, but with development, all the rebirth linking consciousnesses can come to play if the development is there, right? If the development is there. Now, humans can be reborn in any plane owing to development, or of course, even the hells. So you can't say only to development, right? Same, the human, same as 6 can be reborn in any plane after death, so 1 to 31. And again, humans the same, great sense sphere resultant 8, investigating 2, and the rest owing to whatever state of mind you have developed yourself into. Then we have the asuras. Asura, Petha, Tirachana, hell, apaya. These states are brought about by the unwholesome resultant investigating 1 in the Ahetuka Bhumi. These beings can be reborn within the planes of 1 or realms of 1 to 11, no, planes of 1 to 11, and this is done by the sense sphere, great sense sphere resultant 8, or the investigating consciousness 2, right? Or the investigating consciousness 2.
Bhante, then there's no difference between Chatur Maharajika and human. They're the same.
Yes.
Everything is the same.
Same in terms of possibility of rebirth.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Okay.
Trainees, right? 31. Now, if that person has attained, right, where can these people then go, right? That's the question. Neither perception nor non-perception, the rebirth will come along with the 4th immaterial sphere resultant. Where will that person go? That person will remain within that same plane and attain from there. That is brought about by the 4th immaterial sphere resultant again. Right? Nothingness, the being can develop higher. So 30, 31, that resultant within the plane is brought about by the 3rd immaterial sphere resultant, and then The rebirth can be within that same plane or the one higher. So 30 and 31, and that is brought about by the third or the fourth immaterial sphere, resultant consciousness, depending on whether you had developed the jhana further. Is that clear? Yeah.
Bhante, question.
Yeah.
When this is mainly for trainees, trainees means those who have reached the path, Sotapatti and further up. Yeah,
But yes, but not arahantship.
not Arach. Yeah, Arachip is irrelevant.
Irrelevant.
Yeah, yeah,
Up until that stage, so Sotapanna,
yeah. Now, when they are in 31 sphere, which is neither perception nor non-perception, so only way to escape is to become Arahat.
at that plane, yes.
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 Yeah. Otherwise, he will be there forever.
Yes.
Or he will. Yeah, he, because there's no female or male in that sphere. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they
They. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Bhante, I thought when you become an anagami, you have to come to the pure abode and then attain the arahathood from there. But you can't attain arahathood from immaterial sphere.
no, you don't have to. Now let's say Chaturmaharajika within the Chaturmaharajika plane. No, I'm sorry, Nevasanya and Asanyayatana plane, a being attains to Sotapanna hood and goes there, right?
Yes.
Upon going there, the being will be there, let's say, and attains to Sakudagami and Anagami.
Yeah.
The being necessarily doesn't have to go above that. He can attain arahanthood within that same sphere.
Within the immaterial sphere.
Yes, within the immaterial sphere itself.
Oh, I see. I thought it's a rule that they have to come to the
There is
pure
no
abode.
rule as such. If the
Okay.
being, there is no rule as such, because
Right.
if the being is to attain before, which he can do, then that is a prospective result,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is a
Okay, thank you.
So
Bhante, quick question, Bhante. Immaterial plane, they are born, they can be born in the material plane or fine material plane or sensuous plane, 2 or 3 rooted. And it says, if they have a strong karma towards this plane, what does that mean? Strong karma there.
what it says, there is a strong karma to this plane is the Sinhala is a karma which would pull them to that specific plane, right? Which means to say, there are certain times now, a being who is, how can we say, the being has done certain karmas, right, which creates or which brings that being back to a certain situation. That is what it means by karmas which are sort of heavy towards a certain plane, right?
Can
Now,
you give us an example, Bhante?
an example would be now for a person, let's say, remember I told you a person who is Sri Lankan, right? If the person has never left Sri Lanka, or even if the person is really attached to the culture or all of that of Sri Lanka, there is a higher potential for that person to be reborn as Sri Lankan. That is the karmic attachment there. The karmic weight onto that specific side of existence. Right? I mean, that is what karma works on. Because now, when we take greed, Now, greed is not, we do not, although because of Dhamma, we see it in a certain light, to the mind, it is only another aspect. It is that aspect which creates or brings us or gives us a rebirth supportive of that greed we have. Right? Supportive of the greed we have. It is not a punishment per se. It is exactly the variant, the suitable or the suiting vibration which it is attracted to. So that is why within a greed sphere, we will go to positions where we will be able to engulf ourselves with an object. That is the entire aspect of what greed is. So the resultant will be, so that is again that karmic weight onto a certain sphere in terms of greed now. Right? So it is almost as if a magnetic pull is present.
Bhante,
Yes.
Bhante, does that mean, so if we are so attached to Buddhism, rebirth, linking, if we are born as a human, will I be born as a Buddhist, to a Buddhist? So, as a Buddhist. That's another thing. So about I just want to know.
Well, I think that can be true, because when we are Sotapanna, or when we upon all, stream entra, we find ourselves where it says that we will attain within 7 births. That is because of the vibration that we have is somewhat suiting of that similar culture that we are going to be born into, where we can keep on practicing. Right? So there is an attachment aspect there as well, in terms of having a certain mind which resonates with a similar platform or a similar area or a similar geography or something of the sort.
Okay, Bhante.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yes, basically yes, that could happen. But because greed, hatred, and delusion are not flames to be played around with. Because we might think that we can control these things, but it can very easily, an innocent line of greed can turn into something that burns you entirely. Yeah.
Bhante, can a person in fine material sphere or immaterial sphere, can they attain Nibbana while in that sphere?
Yes, they can. Yes, they can. Right. Gods of all types and variations came to see the Buddha, to listen to the Dhamma. Right. Except the Asanda Satta beings, everyone else came. Right. So meaning that they have potential to be able to attain Nibbana, to develop those sort of focuses and concentrations. Yeah. All right. Then, as a trainee, within the nothingness sphere, infinite consciousness sphere, limited space sphere, we see the same thing happening. They can be reborn within that same sphere, or ones that are above, dependent upon their attainment, but they never fall down from those positions, right? Or planes. Then we have the highest abodes. The highest abode, from the highest pure abode. Now, this is where what we were missing earlier. The highest pure abode, the clear sighted, beautiful, serene, durable, great reward, all of these are a manifestation of the fifth fine material sphere resultant, And beings in the highest pure abode do not gain a rebirth, because those are the anagamis, highest anagamis, who do not come down. Right? Now, clear-sighted can gain reward, or rather rebirth, within number 27. Number 27 is the highest pure abode. They can go up, but they will not come down. Right? 26 is clear-sighted. They will only go up. They will not even be reborn within 26 clear-sighted again. They will go up. That means definitely attain higher. Fifth jhana, fine material sphere resultant, is what gives them the rebirth linking. Then the beautiful, you see that they will only go up. So 26 and 27 brought about by the fifth fine material sphere resultant. Serene, 25, 26, 27 are their potential rebirth positions, then brought about by the fine material sphere. Durable, 24, 25, 26, 27, brought about by the fifth fine material sphere resultant. Great reward, 21, 23 to 31. They can be reborn in any of those positions, right? In any of those positions. So the person who goes into pure reward, great reward, is able to be reborn within the same sphere as well as any of the other pure abodes from 23 durable onwards, right? '22 is non-percipient, so we do not take that realm, right? We do not take that realm. So 23 to 31, all the way up to neither perception nor non-perception, they can be born within by the power of the fifth fine material sphere resultant, right? By the power of the fifth fine material sphere resultant. Then we have steady aura, infinite aura, minor aura, radiant lustre, infinite lustre, minor lustre, minor lustre. All of this is brought about by their respective jhanic attainment. Steady aura, infinite aura, minor aura is brought about by the fourth fine material sphere resultant. They can create rebirth within the same sphere, or the ones above, excluding non-percipient realm. Why? Because those who are trainees do not go into the non-percipient realm. It is not a line of their mentality, right? And they can go from 23.
Sorry, Bhante, this non-percipients, sorry.
Yeah.
Non-percipients, they just have the body and they don't even have any sensory organs.
I think they can be having sensory. Interesting question. Do they have sensory organs?
No.
No, Bhante, they don't have chakku, sota, jhana, jivaka. They have got only
So,
jnana.
so you have to have the consciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't have eyes or ears or nose or
No, they
anything.
don't have.
Physical, just the physical part, even if it is not working.
No.
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 No?
No. Yesterday I listened to a bana by Jina Lankar in New Zealand, and he said in the Asanjatale, they don't have Chakkusota Jana Riva Kaya, but they have only the life faculty.
Okay. Okay. So then we go down to, but the thing is, the reason that trainees are born or not born within the non-percipient realm is actually not because of the lack of the five senses. It is because the Nibbana Gami Chetana volition is not in line with a rebirth within the non-percipient realm. Right? It doesn't match or fit that path. The Nibbana-gami practice or the path leading to Nibbana is in understanding, not in getting rid of the mind, which the end goal within the non-percipient realm is. Right? That is why, as a rebirth, it is only this plane where beings then attain to a state which does not have mind but just the body. Right? Radiant Lashra, infinite Lashra, mind Lashra from infinite aura, steady aura downwards to minor aura. It is a fine material sphere resultant which gives rise in that specific plane. They can be reborn in that specific plane or the ones higher except the non-percipient realm. And that is brought about by that respective consciousness, jhanic consciousness resultant or immaterial sphere resultant, depending on the development. Then we have radiant Lashra, infinite Lashra, and minor Lashra brought about by the second or the third fine material sphere resultants. They can be reborn in that specific jhana or the ones above, except non-percipient realm, and brought about by the second to the fifth fine material jhana resultant or the immaterial sphere resultant 4. Then we have Mahabrahma. Mahabrahma, down to Brahma's retinue, is a manifest or is manifested. That rebirth is manifested through the first five material sphere resultant. They can be born in that plane or the ones higher, except the non-percipient realm, all the way up to Neva Sanya Nasanyayatana plane, which is brought about by the 1 to 5 fine material sphere resultant or the immaterial sphere 4. Resultant 4. Paranimita Vasavatya is brought about by the 3 rooted sense sphere resultant 4. They can be reborn in that plane or the ones higher. Also, they can go down to any other plane within Kama Sugati. Right? So from Kama Sugati to any other plane except non-percipient, they can be reborn within, owing to the 3 rooted sense sphere resultant 4, the fine material resultants, fine material sphere resultant 5, and the immaterial sphere resultant 4. Nimmana Rati, same as 11, right? Everything else they can go or be reborn in that plane, Kama Sugati, or the ones above, any plane other than non-percipient. Right? Other than non-percipient. Is that clear? Why? Right.
Bhante,
Yeah.
when you see the table, so it is not for a Sotapanna, for example, Sotapanna person. Sotapanna person is not recommended, or it's not the best way to be born in one of these fine materials or immaterial spheres, right? Because then you will be trapped in those spheres and you have to go up through the ladder up to Neva Sanya Nasanya sphere. And then only you have to escape from there, probably. Oh, because there's no rebirth back to human life.
Well, the thing is, we can't really say that it is the most difficult, because beings who
Yeah.
are within the divine realms, other than the human realm, they do have higher intellect, enabling them to grasp the Dhamma far more easily than we do. Also, when we refer to the sutra stories of the deities listening to the Buddha and then attaining to some sort of enlightenment, we always find that these beings start with Sotapanna and go right ahead.
Okay.
That enables, that speaks to the ability of these beings, the tikka panya within these beings. So it would be unfair to say that it would be far difficult. But for,
Okay.
of course, that is why now, when a person is aiming to become a Buddha, at that stage, of course, he would behave in a different manner. They would not be going into the jhanic planes and all these planes, because their mentality is for a different thing.
Yeah.
Right? So, no, Damsriya, I don't think we can say that it is difficult.
Okay.
Bhante,
Yeah.
in the immaterial sphere,
Yeah.
where there's no physical body, but only the senses, do they have the hearing faculties?
Hearing faculty in the immaterial sphere, no. They communicate through clairvoyance.
Consciousness.
Oh, I see, right.
Consciousness. Yeah.
Yes,
So,
consciousness. I'm
so
sorry.
do they have the privilege of Dharma Sravana if need be?
Yes.
They can.
They do Dhamma Center with the mind. They
Oh,
can
I see.
read
Right.
each other's minds.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be a Sotapanna to come to, even if you are not a Sotapanna, if you come to the fine material or immaterial spheres, you can attain jhana and listen to Dhamma and attain Nibbana.
Yes. Very much. Very much. All right. So that is the end of the chart. It was not as difficult as we assumed it would be last time, isn't it? No, it is, I think, a representation of where we can go and what sort of leads to what. Now, shall we go ahead with the Rupa?
Bhante, these jhanas, they are nothing compared to path and fruit, are they? Or they are
For sure not.
So path and fruit, they are higher than,
For
not
sure
higher
not.
than jhana.
No, for sure not. However, jhanas can be quite a contribution to the attainment. Because for one, we know they suppress the nivaranas, so much so sometimes that one may assume or presume oneself to be enlightened, right? And also, it gives us a clear state of mind to go into the deeper vipassana insights, right? So while it is not higher, it is definitely a very powerful tool in the attainment.
But there were jhanas before Buddha's time, is that right?
Absolutely. There were many jhanas before the time of the Buddha, but it was only after the Buddha that people learned how to go beyond that grasp of nama and rupa into a state of nothingness. So the sunya dharma, the science of or the dharma of nothingness, was essentially what the Buddha taught, which made everything, which made a great difference in where we could take all the spiritual heights that one could attain and achieve.
And also, Bhante, the last few, they can go anywhere but not non-percipient. But what if they want to go there? Some people like to go there.
I think when we speak about a seeker, a seeker is a person. Now, sota apan, sotapan. The one who gets into that river, when that person is within that mindset, the person wants to attain, not to prolong. Within that mindset, a person will not choose a consciousness or a state of consciousness that will prolong his suffering in the world. He will want exit from it rather than prolong. That is the mentality which runs in that person.
Yeah.
Right? That is the mentality that runs in that person. That is why he will never be reborn in that state. Just like a bodhisattva who has received his niyata vivarana will never be reborn in these planes as well. Because why? He works so hard, day in and day out, on his mind, is perfecting the perfection to be able to attain to the greatest fruit of Buddha.
Bhante,
Yeah.
I think Buddha himself also mentioned this situation. What he explained is this is asanya sat is just waste of time, and it's called abhavya talaya because you don't go anywhere or you just delay your process. So yeah, so you are wasting 500 yawns. And so Buddha has said that, yes, this particular sphere is there, but people at that time, Buddha's time, some of the people, teachers, they recommend this for some sort of satisfaction, not for the liberation of your consciousness or anything like that. It's a side tracking rather.
Abhavya means there's no value in it.
Yes.
No value in it because you can't do anything.
Yes.
Right? Nor do you even experience anything.
Yeah.
Or,
Bhante, you have a very good knowledge of Pali. Because you translated that word
well,
very nicely. Yeah.
maybe just because art is not at all good. No. Okay. Okay. Do we go into Rupa or shall we do that next week?
Bhante, give us an introduction on Rupa and give us why it is so important to understand and Rupa in the process of Vidarshana. Because in the Vidarshana, there's a section called Rupa Samutthana or something like that, and you have to meditate on Rupa. And can you explain why it's so important that you need to understand Rupa also, same as other Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, within the 28 types of material phenomena that exist when it comes to the vipassana that we practice, the whole of self or a great part of self is actually based upon or built around the rupa. Right? We find that although we might say manopubbhangama dhamma, that is only true within the eyes of a person who truly knows and sees. Otherwise, our lives are built around a certain rupa, right? A certain rupa. In its connection and intimate linking to the mind and how we see the mind, we find ourselves then facing difficulties in vipassana in separating mind and matter. Nama Rupa Parichedanyana is very important in discerning what truly the mind is and what truly materiality is. And in seeing the attachment bases of the mind and attachment bases of the body. Kamaraga is often experienced through the body, right? And everything that is material, that is cognized by the mind. But the main force by which we experience all these things is again the body, which gives us an ability through the understanding of Rupa in being able to then have an understanding where we can discern between the mind and that which is body, and not mixing the mind and the body and presuming a different or a self other than the mind and the body, which is a relation, which is a result of its relationship with each other. That clear discernment comes, as it is said, and as we will also be going through, comes through the body operating on its forces and factors, and the mind operating upon its forces and factors. We have now gone through most parts of the mind, and now we are left with the body. Right? Just as a chitta viti has its mechanism and law of governing and self-governing its mechanisms, the rupa part has its own as well. And we understand through that the law of cause and effect on a rupa level and on a nama level. Right? And on a nama level. So that is why we go into what the rupa is and what nama is separately, right? So maybe actually we could go through the introduction today. We have time. So let's start with the introduction. Compendium of matter, Rupa Sangha Vibhaga. Having thus far analyzed consciousness and mental factors in accordance with their classes and modes of occurrence, matter will now be dealt with. The compendium of matter is fivefold: enumeration, classification, origination, groups, and modes of occurrence. Guide to 1. The first 5 chapters of the Abhidhamma Sangha form, in a way, a complete compendium dealing with various aspects of conscious experience, with the 90, 89, or 121 types of consciousness, with the 52 mental factors and their permutations, with the occurrence of consciousness in cognitive processes and at rebirth, with the planes of existence and with the classification of karma and its result. These first 5 chapters may be considered a detailed analysis of the 2 ultimate realities, chitta and cetasika, consciousness and mental factors. Acharya Buddhadatta will analyze in detail the 3rd ultimate reality, matter. He will first enumerate the kinds of matter kinds of material phenomena. Then he will explain the principles by which they are classified, their causes or means of origination, their organization into the groups, and their modes of occurrence. Finally, he will conclude the chapter with a brief look at the 4th ultimate reality, the unconditioned element, nibbana. The Pali word for matter, rupa, is explained by derivation from the word rupati, which means to be deformed, disturbed, knocked about, oppressed, broken. The commentators maintain that matter is so called because it undergoes and imposes alteration owing to adverse physical conditions such as cold and heat, etc. The Buddha himself, in explanation of the term matter or material phenomena, declares, and why, monks, do you say material form is, it is deformed. Therefore, it is called material form. Deformed by what? Deformed by cold, by heat, by hunger, by thirst, by flies, by mosquitoes, wind, sunburn, and creeping things, meaning creepy crawlies, insects, animals, snakes, right? So, rupatiti rupang is the definition sentence in Pali. Rupatiti rupang is because of the change of condition, the rupa now changes. What are the changes in condition? What is said here? Changes in condition which happen through the cold, by the heat, by hunger, by thirst, by flies, mosquitoes, wind, sunburn, all of these things. Anything that can disturb the flow of a phenomena, a material phenomena, it is the function of this process that rupa constantly changes. If rupa does not change, rupa dies. It is not able to maintain itself without that changing element within it. Almost reminds me of an engine of sorts, isn't it? Or where energy has to continue, or what else happens to energy? It converts into something else. Again, energy can never be in one place, isn't it? It has to go through change again and again and again and again, and it will do so owing to the natures around it. Likewise, rupa can never remain within the same position, right? Within the same position. Enumeration of material phenomena, right? Enumeration of material phenomena. Matter is twofold, namely the four great essentials and the material phenomena derived from the four great essentials, right? These two constitute 11 categories. 11 categories. Matter is twofold. The Abhidhamma enumerates 28 types of material phenomena, which are briefly comprised in two general categories: the four great essentials, the Mahabhuta, and the material phenomena derived from the four great essentials, that is, four great essentials, right? Upadaya Rupa, the second one. Upadaya, right? The four great essentials, Mahabhuta, are the primary material elements: earth, water, fire, air. These are the fundamental constituents of matter, which are inseparable and which, in their various combination, enter into the composition of all material substances. From the most minute particle to the most massive mountain, derived material phenomena, upadhaya rupa, are material phenomena derived from or dependent upon the 4 great essentials. These are 24 in number. The 8 essentials may be compared to the earth, the derivative phenomena to trees and shrubs that grow in dependence on the earth. Is that clear? Right? So whilst the Mahabhuta form the absolute crux, and they cannot be separated from each other, right? In the same manner, these Upadhyaya Rupas are derived phenomena because from the Mahabhutas, right? From the Mahabhutas, but they also have their specific function. Now, all these 28 types of material phenomena are distributed into 11 general classes. 7 of these are called concretely produced, Nishpanna Rupa, since they possess intrinsic natures and thus suitable for contemplation and comprehension by insight. The other 4 classes, being more abstract in nature, are called non-concretely produced matter, Anishpanna Rupa. Sorry about that. Anishpanna Rupa. Let's look at the chart. 236. Concretely produced matter. Nishpanna Rupa. We have the great essentials, earth, water, fire, air. Then we have the sensitive phenomena, Pasada Rupa, Chakku Pasada, Gana Prasada, Jivha Prasada, eye, nose, tongue, body. Then we have objective phenomena, which is the forms that you see through the 5 senses, visible forms, sound, smell, taste, tangibility. We have the sexual phenomena which negates sexuality, femininity, masculinity. The heart phenomena, which is the heart base, the life phenomena, which is the life faculty, and nutritional phenomena, which is nutriment. Now, these ones can be contemplated through insight. The others cannot. Limiting phenomena, space element, communication phenomena, verb, bodily intimation and vocal intimation, mutable phenomena, lightness, malleability, wildness, and their characteristics of matter, production, continuity, decay, impermanence. Right? Impermanence. Those cannot be seen through insight. Right? But the first 18 can be taken as objects for insight development. For insight development. Right. I think maybe it would be good to end there for today, because I think some of the others would like to join in for the other class also when we are doing starting the chapter. So any questions that you have with regards to what we have covered today?
Bhante,
What are the rupas that cannot be taken as insight? Which rupas?
On the chart, non-concrete matter.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
10.
Yes. Yes, Damsini.
Bhante, when you talk about the Mahabhuta, these 4 Mahabhutas are actually historically part of Hinduism also. And I think its information is coming from ancient Greek tradition. Before the science came into the system, they classify material into 4 classes. But what I understand is, but in Buddhism, even though we call it Mahabhuta, they are not matter. They are actually properties, right? For example, if you say earth, it's a solidity or the solidness or the hardness,
Yeah.
right? And so when you talk about the similarly, it's the properties we have to be considered, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
That is also why these properties, for them to exist, they must coexist.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
This is almost as if, even when we take the graphical representation of a quark or a lepton, we find that the energy force within it builds a certain hardness, a flowing nature, right? And is a representation of these properties which allows it to maintain itself. If one of the angles or part of that process is disturbed, I mean, it can cause catastrophic damage, isn't it? Right? I mean, the world, the universe as we know it can crumble in just a slight moment that a certain part of the atom stops moving. Right? These properties are the integral crux of creation itself. I mean, I use the word creation, but I shouldn't be using the word creation. That was the Catholic boy in me. What creation are we talking about? Not creation. Is the crux and foundation of all phenomena, material, tangible phenomena in the whole universe. And it applies to the sun, the gravitational pull, the supersonic waves, everything, right? These properties. Yes.
Bhante,
Yeah.
Bhante, when you speak of these properties, is that when you say that the earth is the hardness and water is cohesiveness and fire is the heat and the movement of the earth? That's what. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So they are not tangible, right? They can only be felt as properties, but cannot be experienced wholly on that attribute of just being earth or just being water or air. Like even the air, you can only feel it because there's a sense of hardness in the air which knocks on your face or which knocks against the palm as you brush against the air at some speed, right? That hardness is created because of force imposed. That is Pataviyapo Tejo Vayu just as much as this mouse is Pataviyapo Tejo Vayu, right? That in turn, with the hardness, with the elements being sort of manifested in different ways, different hardnesses and all of this, we have the phenomena around us. Just like the cellular composition of any phenomena is different to one another and unique in its identity of manifesting itself, just so we have the different phenomena around us. Yes, so that is that. So we will go into that next time, next week. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Then, good night. I will see you on Wednesday. Take care. And how is the temperature there? Is it still hot?
We are having rain and torrential rain and flooding.
Torrential rain. Okay.
In London, anyway.
So the heat lasted just for a couple of days, huh?
The heat is what caused the rain, Bhante, because of the extremes of the heat. It's in all areas. And I mean, they have almost a month of rain within an hour. And so whole buildings are going underwater. Tube stations are going underwater. In London, it's like that. And it's also in Germany. And I think in America and in Canada, they're having fires and heat waves, which they can't
That's
manage.
only in California. The fires are there
No,
burning.
but even in Canada,
Yeah.
on the western, even in
West-
Canada, on the western
Yeah.
coast, remember, it's
Western
that
coast.
western, the Seattle and, you know,
Yeah.
the upper western coast of the north as well, on the western coast. And it goes up to Canada as well. So many people have died, older people of heat wave, and they have forest fires.
Yeah.
Oregon, that area.
Yes.
California
And-
fire was because of some couple doing a gender reveal party, wasn't it?
Yes. That
Some
when it started.
some of them have been
No.
instigated like that.
All right then. Take
For me, it's hot in Virginia. That's it.
all right. Take care. Good
But
night.
on the East Coast,
Good
it's a
night,
lucky day. East
Good night,
Coast is bad. Good night, Bhante. Teruvan Saranai.
Thank you, Bhante.